Now that we understand linear transformations, we will at times have occasion to consider the composition of multiple transformations. If you're familiar with the composition of functions, much of this will be familiar to you. We'll go over the definition, prove that compositions of linear transformations are themselves linear transformations, see a basic example, and then prove a result concerning one-to-one functions and their compositions. Here's the definition. If T1 is a linear transformation from u to v, and T2 a linear transformation from v to w, then the composition of T2 with T1, denoted T2 circle T1, is defined as follows. A vector is taken from the domain of T1, and when we plug that into the composition of T2 with T1, the vector is first sent through T1, which of course takes it to V. V being the domain of T2 means that we now have a vector that can be plugged into T2, and the image of that vector under the transformation T2 is the final image of the vector under the composition. Of course, since we're plugging images of T1 into T2, it's necessary that every image of T1 is in the domain of T2, and so the domain of T2 has to contain the range of T1 for this composition to be defined. If an image of a vector under T1 landed outside of V, well, then we couldn't take the composition, because stuff outside of V is not in the domain of T2. This is a general pictorial representation of the composition of two linear transformations. T1 takes us from the vector space U to the vector space V, and T2 takes us from V to W. Then their composition takes us from U all the way to W, from the domain of T1 to the codomain of T2. We love it when transformations are linear, so of course it's good news that the composition of linear transformations is itself a linear transformation. Let's go ahead and prove that. So using the same notation as from the definition, T1 is a linear transformation from U to V, T2 a linear transformation from V to W, and we're going to prove that the composition of T2 with T1, which takes us from U to W, is itself a linear transformation. This will be very straightforward since T1 and T2 are themselves linear transformations, and the composition just involves applying each transformation successively. Let's begin with additivity. So we'll take two arbitrary vectors from the domain of the composition. The domain of the composition is the domain of that first transformation, T1. So we're taking two arbitrary vectors from U. Now consider the sum of those vectors, U plus V, and we plug that into the composition. We need to show that the composition of U plus V is the same as the composition of U plus the composition of V, so that we can split the composition of linear transformations across addition. Now, beginning here, plugging U plus V into the composition, by definition of the composition of functions, this is equal to T2 of T1 of U plus V. Now U plus V is being plugged into T1. T1 we know is a linear transformation, so we can split that up across the addition. Hence, T1 of U plus V we can rewrite as T1 of U plus T1 of V. Remember, this is all now inside of T2. But T2 is also a linear transformation. So right now we have T2 of a sum. We can split that up into T2 of T1 of U plus T2 of T1 of V. Now, each of these is itself, by definition, a composition of T2 with T1 evaluated at U and evaluated at V. So T2 of T1 of U, by definition, that's the composition of T2 with T1 evaluated at U. Similarly, T2 of T1 of V is the composition of T2 with T1 evaluated at V. And so we've shown that the composition of T2 with T1 evaluated at U plus V is the same as the sum of those images evaluated separately. Thus, the composition of linear transformations satisfies the additivity property, and all that remains is to show that it satisfies homogeneity as well. To that end, let K be any scalar. Then we're considering the composition of T2 with T1 evaluated at K times U, and we need to show that we can take that scalar K out of the transformation. Just as before, we will apply the definition of the composition of functions to say that this is equal to t2 of t1 of ku. So now ku is in the transformation t1, which we know to be linear, which means we can take that scalar k out of t1. And so we rewrite this as t2 of k times t1 of u. But now we have k times t1 of u inside the transformation t2, which we also know is linear. And so again, we can take the scalar out of that linear transformation. Thus, we have k times t2 of t1 of u. By definition, that is k times the composition of t2 with t1 evaluated at u. And that concludes the proof, showing that the composition of linear transformations satisfies the homogeneity property, and so in total, the composition is itself a linear transformation. Note that I've been referring to this t2 circle t1 as the composition of t2 with t1. If we said the composition of t1 with t2, that would be the opposite order, t1 circle t2. And of course, in general, the composition of functions is not commutative, so the order we are talking about is very important. Let's check out an example of a composition of linear transformations. So here we have two linear transformations. T1 takes us from the vector space of polynomials up to degree n, and sends us to the vector space of polynomials up to degree 2. T2 takes us from P2 to P2, and they are defined as follows. T1 takes a polynomial and multiplies it by x. T2 takes a polynomial and, as an output, has that polynomial evaluated at 3x minus 1. So what T2 would do is it would take a polynomial, and wherever there is x in the polynomial, it would be replaced by 3x minus 1. So for example, of both of these transformations, if we plug 2 plus x, which is a vector from the space of polynomials up to degree 1, if we plug that into t1, t1 is just going to multiply it by x. And so its image is 2x plus x squared. On the other hand, if we take a polynomial like 2x plus x squared from the space of polynomials up to degree 2, and plug that into t2, T2 is going to take this polynomial, and at each place there is an x, it will replace it by 3x minus 1. And so this becomes 2 times 3x minus 1 plus 3x minus 1 squared. So that's how these transformations work. You can verify yourself that they are indeed linear transformations if you like. We've previously discussed this one in previous lectures. I'll leave links in the description. So in general, how the composition of these two transformations will work is that T2 circle T1 evaluated at a polynomial p of x is, of course, by definition, going to be T2 of T1 of p of x, and what T1 of p of x is just x times p of x. So this then becomes T2 of x times p of x. What T2 will do is replace each of those x's with 3x minus 1. And so the final image under the composition is 3x minus 1 times p of 3x minus 1. Note that the only reason this composition makes sense is that T1 takes us to P2, and T2 starts in P2. That's the domain. So the range of T1 is contained in the domain of T2, and so this composition of T2 with T1 makes sense. We could also write out these details for an arbitrary polynomial from the domain being that space of polynomials up to degree 1. So an arbitrary vector from that space looks like this, c0 plus c1 times x. And if we were to plug that into the composition, we would just multiply the whole thing by x, that's applying t1. So then we would have c0x plus c1x squared, that's getting plugged into t2, and t2 would replace each x with 3x minus 1. And so the image of that arbitrary polynomial under the composition would be c0 times 3x minus 1, that's replacing that x with 3x minus 1, plus c1 times 3x minus 1 squared. That's replacing that x with 3x minus 1. And of course, from our previous proof, we know that this composition is itself a linear transformation. And as we said for matrix transformations so long ago, the composition of linear transformations can be defined for any number of linear transformations. As long as they have the appropriate domains so that their compositions actually make sense, it will be defined in the way you would expect. For example, if T1 is a linear transformation from U to V, T2 from V to W, and T3 from W to Y, then the composition of these three linear transformations, T3 circle T2 circle T1, evaluated at U, is defined like this. It's just T3 of T2 of T1 of U. Note that this function composition notation goes from right to left. So T1 hits U first, and then that's plugged into T2, and then that's plugged into T3. In total, of course, the composition takes us from the domain of T1, which is U, all the way to the codomain of T3, which is Y. We'll finish with the proof of two more nice facts about compositions of linear transformations. If we're taking the composition of one-to-one linear transformations, then the composition will also be one-to-one. And also, how do we take the inverse of a composition of transformations? Well, it turns out this is how we do it, in a pretty familiar manner. The inverse of a composition of transformations is just the composition of the inverses in reverse order. So notice that. This is T2 circle T1 inverse, and it turns out it's equal to T1 inverse circle T2 inverse. So composition of the inverses in reverse order. All right, let's prove this. The composition being one-to-one is straightforward. Let's take two vectors u and v from the domain of the composition, which is that vector space u. Now, if u is not equal to v, it's of course our goal to show that their images under the composition are not equal either. One-to-one transformations preserve distinctness. And this is pretty easy to do. If u and v are not equal, well, since t1 is assumed to be one-to-one, we know that t1 of u is not equal to t1 of v. So we have these distinct vectors that live in v, the codomain of t1. That means, of course, that we could plug them into T2. But T2 is also one-to-one. Hence, T2 of T1 of U can't be equal to T2 of T1 of V, because it's one-to-one. It preserves distinctness. But of course, the left side here is by definition the composition of T2 with T1 evaluated at U, and the right side is the composition of T2 with T1 evaluated at V. So we've shown if two vectors are distinct, their images under the composition are distinct as well. And so, if we take the composition of one-to-one transformations, we get a one-to-one transformation. Now, to prove that inverse formula, remember that the inverse of the composition is going to take us from the range of the composition back to the domain. So in order to prove that the formula is valid, we need to show that the inverse of the composition, evaluated at W, is equal to our claimed expression for it, evaluated at W, for all W in the domain of the inverse composition. The domain of the inverse composition is, of course, the range of the original composition. And this is actually a piece of cake. Let's say we've got this arbitrary vector W from the domain of the inverse composition. Now, if we plug that into the inverse composition, that gives us some vector. Let's call it U. Then by definition of an inverse, T2 circle T1 evaluated at U must map to W. For the inverse to send W to U means that the original function must send U to W. So T2 of T1 of U is equal to W. Because remember, the left side, by definition of the composition, is just T2 of T1 of U. So T2 of T1 of U equals W, and now we're going to start taking inverses on both sides of this equation, and we will arrive at the desired result. So taking this equation, we begin by taking T2 inverse on both sides. How do we even know T2 inverse exists? Well, because T2 was assumed to be one-to-one. Remember, that was part of the hypothesis of our theorem. Our two transformations are one-to-one, so we can take T2 inverse of both sides. Now, on the right, of course, we just have T2 inverse of W. But on the left, we have T2 inverse of T2 of a bunch of stuff. Point being, we have T2 inverse of T2, and those will cancel out. Hence, what's on the left side after that cancellation is just T1 of U. Now, T1 also has an inverse since it's 1 to 1. So we'll take T1 inverse of the left side and the right side. On the left, we have T1 inverse of T1 of U, and again, those inverse transformations will cancel out, leaving behind just U. And on the right, we'll have T1 inverse of T2 inverse of W. By definition, that's the composition of T1 inverse with T2 inverse, of course, evaluated at W. And that establishes the result. Remember, the claim was that the inverse of the composition evaluated at W should always be the same as T1 inverse circled T2 inverse evaluated at W. We're claiming that they're the same. And we've just shown that if one is equal to U, the other one is equal to U as well. So in fact, they are the same. Now, to actually read out this formula that we just proved correctly, especially if we had more than just two transformations, it's a bit of a mouthful. Better to just remember the words. Describing this in words is that the inverse of a composition is the composition of the inverses in the reverse order, just like with the inverse of a product of matrices. And of course, we can generalize this formula to as many transformations as we like. So that's what the composition of linear transformations is, and some interesting results about them. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and be sure to check out my linear algebra course and linear algebra exercises playlists in the description for more.